Jaya Gopi Chandravallabha Girivardha Jaya Gopi Chandravallabha Girivardha Yashodanandana Braja Janara Yashodanandana Braja Janara Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiha Jaya Gopi Chandavala Girivardha Jaya Gopi Chandavala Girivardha Yashodanandana Braja Janaranja Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Jaya Gopi Chandravallabha Girivardha Yashodanandana Braja Janara Yashodanandana Braja Janaran Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Hare Radha Giridhari Shri Radha Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Shri Radha Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Divine grace. Bhakti. Dasa, Swami Prabhu. Now, Vishnu Paramam. Swami Vitipanda Shri Prabhupada ki. Anakoti Vasandan ki. Katara Chimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Sai Gaur Premananda. So the Leela Marita doesn't look like it's in the right bookmark page. And I don't want to spend too much time looking for where we are. So I'm going to skip this because it's not in the right page. And I haven't been following it, so please forgive me. We're going to skip this. Oh, here it is. Maybe it's just one. Oh, yeah. We found it. So, Srila Prabhupada, Los Angeles, February 25th, 1970. On the auspicious occasion of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day anniversary, the Los Angeles devotees received permission to enter the new temple at Watsika Avenue. The rooms had not even been cleaned, and the large hall was bare, but the devotees brought in Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan from the old temple on La Chinega, and Prabhupada had them place on it a large picture of his spiritual master. Standing before his spiritual master, Prabhupada offered arati with some 50 disciples gathered around him, chanting Hare Krishna and dancing in the otherwise empty hall. After the arati, Prabhupada directed his disciples in offering flowers to the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then, still standing before the Vyasasan, he said he had nothing to offer his spiritual master on this day except his own disciples. He then read aloud the names of all his disciples. Taking his seat on a low Vyasasan beside the large Vyasasan of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada gave a short history of his Guru Maharaj, son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and powerful Acharya of the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As Prabhupada recalled his first meeting with his spiritual master, he told how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had told him to teach Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking world. This large new temple, Prabhupada said, had been provided by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati as a gift for the devotees to use in Krishna service. They should not become attached to the opulence, Prabhupada said, but they should use this wonderful place for preaching. As he spoke, he wept. Now bring the prasadam, Prabhupada called. And the feast began. While devotees sat on the floor in rows, Prabhupada from his Vyasasan directed the servers, having them bring another samosa to one devotee, more chutney to another, and so on. He watched over all of them, encouraging them to take Krishna Prasad. So Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning, we are reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 8, the character of Bharat Maharaj, text 13. So this is all prose, Sanskrit. I'll just read the Sanskrit and then we can read the synonyms. Patichucha mugdha bhavena tatra tatra vishakmati tanaya bhara hridhaya karpanya Skande no dhavati evam utsanga urashi. Chadhayo palayan mudham paramam avapa. Synonyms, kindly repeat. Patishu, on the forest paths. Cha, also. Mugdabhavena, by the childish behavior of the deer. Tatra tatra, here and there. Vishaktamati, whose mind was too much attracted. Pranaya, with love. Bhara, loaded. Riddhaya, whose heart. Karpanya, because of affection and love. Skandena, by the shoulder. Udvahati, carries. Evam, in this way. Utsange, sometimes on the lap. Urasi, on the chest while sleeping. Cha, also. Adhaya, keeping. Upalalayan, fondling. Mudham, pleasure. Paramam, very great. Avapa, he felt. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: when entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaj Bharat due to its childish behavior. Maharaj Bharat would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap, or when sleeping on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Purport: Maharaj Bharat left his home, wife, children, kingdom, and everything else to advance his spiritual life in the forest. But again, he fell victim to material affection due to his attachment to an insignificant pet deer. What then was the use of his renouncing his family? One who is serious in advancing his spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything but Krishna. Sometimes in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities. But we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of our being victimized by material activities. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananyana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are multiple examples of how even exalted devotees have to struggle with Maya. This is indeed a very human experience. The human drama with our struggle with the illusory energy is there very much within every living entity that's trying to traverse this material world. So there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have actually many examples. Of course, we're hearing Bharat Maharaj, but not just he. There are, as we heard last week, Subhari Muni, who was a great sage, who was distracted by the copulation of fish. There is, of course, Indra, celestial being, who was always distracted by his own opulences, envy, and pride. He becomes disturbed by the greatness of other living entities. He has to sometimes have to intervene to keep his own position in the celestial planets. There's Ajamila, who got distracted again by the attraction between the opposite sex, which is really the ultimate distraction in this material world. But specifically, we're hearing the distraction of Bharat Maharaj. You see, for the devotee, death isn't so much the biggest issue. We all have to face our mortality at some point in this life, sooner or later, maybe later, Krishna willing, because we have a lot of purification to do. Nonetheless, the real problem, the real effort that devotees have to make is the distraction that we have to face in this day and age, specifically, especially in Kali Yuga, as we hear, this is the age of distraction, where there's so many things that are there to tantalize and divert your mind and senses away from Krishna. Now you might think, well, there's so much technology and technological advancement in today's society. There's so much structure and system. There's so many kinds of advancement in terms of social, political systems, etc., etc. Maybe not. In any case, even in my 24 years of Krishna consciousness, you see so many problems that you didn't see 24 years ago. Just like this technology, internet problem, as we know, as we heard actually about a month ago, I was just hearing that most people spend 7 or 8 hours on their screens, either on the phone, on their laptops, on the TV. God forbid no one watches the TV for educational purposes, I'm sure. But in any case, there's so many distractions. 7 or 8 hours a normal and average materialist would spend in front of their cell phone, in front of the laptop. What are they looking at? Is it all Krishna conscious content? In any case, this was never a problem when I was growing up as a young guy. You know, as we know, 80% of the internet's used for unspeakable things we won't mention in the Bhagavatam, which causes a massive headache for any person, not just the men, but women also trying to become Krishna conscious. So you might say, yes, we have technological advancement, technological refinement, and it does give us a lot of conveniences to today's society in terms of how we function our daily lives. But at the same time, we have all these problems that we never had 20 years ago. So is it really advancement? Therefore, the devotee is really much more concerned about the distractions that he or she has to overcome in this lifetime. Why is that? Yam yam bapishmaran bhavam tajante kalevram tam tam evati contest whatever state of mind, whatever your mind is attached to in this specific lifetime, that will then consider your next birth and your next life. So therefore, we should be more worried about the distractions that we have to contend with, the challenges of the distractions that we have to contend with in this day and age, than ultimately facing our mortality. Because when our mortality is right before our eyes, what we've attached ourselves to in this lifetime, what we've developed an attachment for, that becomes a very prevalent thing at the time of death. Of course, the devotee is thinking, even if he or she is absorbed in Krishna consciousness throughout this lifetime, he's thinking, I'm just made of Krishna's mercy. We want to remember Krishna at the time of death, but it's very difficult if we're always distracted with so many things. Krishna says in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I give the remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So even then, it's up to Krishna to force himself to enter into our mind so we can remember him at the time of death. So we want to be able to attract Krishna's mercy, because even then, at the time of death, Krishna has to actually intervene. He gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So it's a very important fact of how we live our days, live our life, of how we're actually dealing with all the distraction that's coming from material nature. And some things we just can't control. And we have to be a little more proactive of how we manage our work life, our family life, our day-to-day activities. So Srila Prabhupada explains here in the purport, sometimes in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities. That is indeed a fact. But we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of being victimized by material activities. So what this says is that basically Maya doesn't just mean the world of matter, the phenomenal world of matter around us, the illusory world that we see, the temporary material world. Rather, Maya is also a matter of perception. He confirms this in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the Chaturshloki. Ritayartam yat patireta, not patiyeta chatmani, tat vidyat mato maya metha baso yata tamaha. He says, whatever you see of any value, you look around this material world, and what you see of any value, your wife, your husband, your family, your possessions, your bank balance, your children, anything that you see of value, you say, if it's not in relationship to me, nor does my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Srila Prahlad Maharaj explains in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, in his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, Ekastvam Jagat Abam Jagat Ekam. He says, you are everything, my Lord. In other words, everything is Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport, that energy by which the Lord's all-pervasiveness is not realized, that is called material. In other words, everything is spiritual because everything is emanating from the Supreme Spiritual Being. It's a simple adjustment of perception. If we don't see things in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that is regarded as material. So the world of matter around us isn't just what we deem as Maya or illusory. Indeed, it is illusory, but it's coming from Krishna. If we don't see things in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that's regarded as material. So therefore, it's very important that we see things and whatever we have in this material will be used for Krishna's service, because if everything is part of Krishna or part of Krishna's energy, then if Krishna belongs to he owns these things, then we use everything in Krishna's service. So you might be thinking, well, how do I know whether I have too much, as we hear in Nectar of Instruction, Atyaha Prayasyasya Prajalpunya Magraha, the 6 things that are detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in his Bhakti Loka, how do you know when you've over-collected? He says, look at what you've got in terms of your inventory, your paraphernalia. If you can't use a particular item in Krishna service, it means that you've over-collected. He's a great example because he's a grihastha. If you've got something in your possession, in your inventory that you can't use in Krishna's service, it means atyaha. You've already over-collected. And because you've over-collected means that there's usually prayas, over-endeavor. Why? Because you've got to endeavor so much to maintain all the things that you've hoarded and collected. And then that causes a lot of distraction, because all those things that you can't use in Krishna's service, well, what do you need them? What do you have them for? Is it just there for entertainment? Is it there for your own pleasure? Is it there for something else? So this was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's line in which by which one can measure whether one has over-collected or not. Because when there's over-collection, there's over-endeavor. And when there's over-endeavor, there's unnecessary distractions, isn't it? There's like so much time that's used to cleaning stuff. Like if you've got like we've got an ashram and we don't have beds, we don't have a lot of things in there, but it's just such a hassle just to clean something that, that doesn't even have any furnishing. I can't even imagine someone owning a house with all kinds of things, how much effort there's just to maintain all that paraphernalia. The more simple that you live, the more life becomes easy. So what does it mean to be simple? Simple just means following Shastra. It doesn't matter whether you're a grihastha or a brahmachari or something. Of course, certainly if you're a renounced order of life, things are certainly a lot more simple. But the complication comes when we have to speculate so much of, what I want to do or where I want to go, what I want to do with my life. And there's so much anxiety that comes with that. Even just relatively speaking, for someone who is a grihastha, opposed to someone who is just a materialist who does what they want. The grihastha, the proper married person who's living a Krishna conscious life, is actually living a lot more simple, theoretically speaking. Of course, I can't say I've got no experience, but the grihastha just follows Shastra, isn't it? Okay, now it's time to get married, so this is what you do. Now it's time to have kids, this is what you do. You have a job, you work according to your guna and karma, this is my occupation. And everything's sort of set out for you because you just have this road work, this roadmap in terms of how to live your life. It's when you don't follow Shastra, when all the complications actually comes. Therefore, Krishna says to Arjuna, Ya Shastra vidam uchvedya vartate kama karta nasa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na param gatim. For those who are acting whimsically according to lust, kama karate vartata, then nasa siddhim, you can't attain perfection, na sukham, you can't be happy, na param gatim, certainly you cannot attain the supreme destination. And Arjuna was like that in the beginning, in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He was completely concocting how he wanted to live his life, how he wanted to see the situation, how he wanted to deal with this circumstance that he had to deal with before him, which is namely the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He didn't want to follow Shastra. He didn't want to follow Krishna. Therefore, he was put into a state of such anxiety and depression to the point of dysfunctionalism. So this is a lesson for anyone, whether you're a brahmachari, a sannyasi, or grihastha. Of course, Arjuna was a grihastha. He was a materially competent, materially qualified, materially high-positioned individual within a real culture. So you see, even people with material credentials, they can also fall down into a state of such delusion and illusion and dysfunctionalism. They can't even just do their duty. And what to speak of us residents of Kali Yuga? That tendency is certainly to be there. Well, if we don't follow the tenets of the Shastra. So Arjuna, he wanted to move the world in a particular trajectory. He didn't want to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. But nonetheless, the battle had to be fought regardless whether he wanted to or not. In fact, the Kauravas were bent on killing him and his family and the Pandavas. It was illogical for him not to fight. It's just like if someone breaks into your house and was bent on murdering your family and children, and you say, oh, you're just going to stand there and do nothing. So that's what Arjuna was prepared to do. He wanted to control the situation. And he had to come to terms with the fact that he wasn't the controller. He wasn't the supreme controller. So we can all relate to this. Sometimes the world is moving in a particular trajectory that we don't want it to move. And therefore we go against it and want to make control of our own situation, whether it's good for us or not. So Arjuna wanted to control the situation. He wanted to act independently. What did he say to Krishna? Better I go to the forest and beg. In other words, he was alluding that I'm going to be just like a mendicant, like a renunciant, a brahmachari or something, a sannyasi. I'm going to go to the forest and just become a beggar. Better that I do that than have to fight my own cousin brothers and my martial teacher and my grandfather who showed me so much affection. So he wanted to act independently from the situation. That's what it means to be the controller. You want to do your own thing, whether you think it's good for you or not. Why? Because you want to enjoy separately from Krishna. And he said this, Arjuna said, what happiness will you derive from killing my own kinsmen? In other words, I won't enjoy anything. Even if I win this war, even if I kill my family members, what happiness will we derive, O Krishna? O Govinda, one who gives pleasure to the senses. He very tactfully makes this argument, calling Krishna Govinda, because he meant to give pleasure to my senses. For what happiness, how will we enjoy by killing our own kinsmen? And why? Because Arjuna wanted to be the master of the situation. He wanted to put himself in the center and make his desire be the number one. He wanted the whole world to revolve around him. He wanted to put himself in the center of the circumstance. And that's what everyone in illusion and the material world is doing. 7 billion people in the world put themselves in the center, and you want your whole world to revolve around your desire. So these I like to call the psychology of anxiety, the psychology of dysfunctionalism. And it's there just in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is called Vishad Yoga, which literally means the yoga of distress. That's what Vishad Yoga means. So if you want to study the psychology of stress, the psychology of dysfunctionalism, the psychology of depression, then you just study Arjuna's illusion in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, how he wanted to control the situation, how he wanted to act independently from Krishna, how he wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna's desire, and how he wanted to be the master of his situation. These are eternal universal principles of life that's relevant for Arjuna 5,000 years ago, and it's certainly relevant for us in this day and age. So why are we put into so much tribulation and anxiety? This is intense because we want to control and enjoy. It's that simple. And then Krishna's first instruction to Arjuna, you are lamenting for what is not worthy of lamentation. You are being depressed. You're in anxiety for what is not worthy of anxiety. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. In other words, Arjuna, have a different platform for living your life. Don't live your life on the bodily material platform, bodily concept of existence. Try and understand a higher reality, the spiritual non-material reality. And throughout that beginning of the second chapter, Krishna explains the spiritual aspect of existence. So in this way, it's very easy. Oh, where did I manage to get into this rant? But the point in saying this is because it's so easy to be distracted in life when we're not living, or we don't have just a fundamental understanding of Shastra. Yeah, Shastra, Vidimutchita, Bharati, Kama, Karata. And if we don't have a foundational or a very strong understanding of Shastra and how to apply Shastra, then one can be bewildered. Why am I in anxiety? Why am I bewildered? Why am I in illusion? Why am I stressed out? Why am I depressed? Then we have to realign with these universal principles that Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, we have to be very careful with the distractions that we have to come and face in this material life, this Kali Yuga that we're in. The challenges are indeed intense, and one should be very compassionate, especially for the young people who are trying to become Krishna conscious in this day and age. They have to go through so many challenges that the older ones don't, that really destroy their brain. Srila Prabhupada says in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavatam, he says in one purport there that all these distractions are really just childish things. He gives the example, an analogy of a child whom and the beach is playing on the sand and building sand castles. So he's very much occupied and absorbed in building walls, building a castle, building the towers. And from a distance, the father is observing the child playing. And then at some point, the father has to say, look, it's time to go home, young man, young. And then the sand castle that he labored so much to build within the sand is destroyed in due course of time. This was such a beautiful analogy because this is the conditioned soul. They're very much busy making sand castles by the sand, by the beach, working so hard to build their house, build their societies, build their nations, build their communities. And then you meet some book distributor in the street, you meet someone, they tell you about Bhagavad Gita, and all of a sudden, Krishna's calling you back home. Come back to Goloka. Come back to Vaikuntha. Come back to the spiritual world. And all that time and effort and endeavor, all that atyahara and piyas, over collecting and over endeavor to build those sandcastles by the beach, Kaloshmi, Lokacharka, Pravido, just get destroyed by time. So therefore, if you look at it in this way, all kinds of sense gratification, distraction, it's just like it's a childish thing. It's just like you're trying, if you see children play, if you observe children play, you know, they all pretend to be something. Oh, you know, I'm like this, I'm like that. They watch some cartoon, Sesame Street, where I haven't seen a cartoon in a long time. They pretend to be Mickey Mouse or Daffy Duck or something. They play, and you know. But isn't that just like adults are like the same thing? They just do it in a more refined way. You know? But it's exactly the same thing. It's just a more sophisticated way of playing. Yeah, I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I'm a man. I'm a woman. He's my wife. She's my wife. She's my husband. Sorry, getting mixed up. You know, of course it goes both ways. It doesn't matter anyway. In Kali Yuga, anything goes. You know, but no, but it's all just play. You're playing in your sandcastle by the beach. Oh, you know, you have these illusory roles, material bodily identification, these roles. And when Krishna says it's time to come home, young man, time to go back to Godhead, all that is dissipated, just like when the waves wash away the sandcastle. So this is, yeah, a mature, a really developed, conscious individual will not be engaged in any kind of illusory sense gratification distraction. If you want to see someone who's really mature, it's not because out of age, oh, now I'm 60, 70, 80 years old, I'm very mature. What are you doing with your mind and senses? That's the big question. Is it being engaged in Krishna's service, or is it engaged in illusory activities? Like I meet so many people sometimes. Some time ago, I met a 75-year-old gentleman, presented to him the Bhagavad Gita, and he was very proud. I mean, I've been in this world for 75 years. What can you tell me, young man? I've raised a family with 3 kids, fought a war, had few jobs, have a house, have grandchildren. I can tell you about life. Do you see people like that? They're artificially very proud about their material credentials. I can tell you about life, young man. So I said to him, well, tell me what's the difference between a living body and a dead body? And he looked at me a little bewildered, you know. What does that have to do about life? Life means working hard, accumulating, making money, security, stability. Well, you tell me what's the difference between a living body and a dead body? If you can't even tell me the difference between a living body and a dead body, then how can you tell me about life? Simple logic. If you can't tell me anything about that which lives, namely the soul within the body, the consciousness within the body, how can you tell me anything about life? You can just tell me about how to eat, have sex, you know, have defense, you know, have shelter. That's all. This every animal, every species in existence are doing. You know? And that's all you can tell me. Is that life? It's just basically maintenance of a dead body. So that's the situation. It doesn't matter how old you are in terms of age. It's all about how are you utilizing your mind and senses. Is it for sense gratification, or is it for Govinda, the pleasure of the senses, the master, Hrishikesh, the master of the senses, pleasure of Krishna's senses? So then it's a very important point. What real progress is as an individual, as a civilization, as a society? Yes, one can boast a very technologically advanced civilization. And I can tell you about life, young man. But at the same time, the rishis, the sages, well, as devotees, were more concerned about the quality of consciousness, the person behind the technology, the person behind the systems, the person behind the institutions, because it's people that make the society. And look at the state of the people that we have today. So many addictions of all kinds. psychological traumas, anxiety, trauma, depression, anger problems, so many issues. Oh, but we have such good technology. We're concerned about the human issue, the human problem. The human problem is the biggest problem because it's human beings that constitute the institutions, the society, the nations, the families. So therefore, it's always important to focus one's consciousness in making a real change. In other words, making a real difference internally, investing in your inner journey, how to elevate your consciousness in such a way that we can actually elevate the world. People are always talking about, let's change society, let's change this and that and the other. But at the same time, they can't even change themselves. We feed our focus and starve our distractions. How do you get rid of an unwanted guest? You don't look at them. Like sometimes we have people that come to our outreach functions and they're a little bit crazy or lazy, you know, like, supposed to, we try and be as compassionate as possible. We generally don't want people come into our environment when they're not psychologically together. Sometimes they're drug addicts. We don't really want them in the preaching centers. So then what do? You just neglect them, you know. You don't talk to them. You just let them. So the same way, we have so many distractions, so many attachments that in our mind, we just have to learn how to neglect it and focus on what really counts, which is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Because ultimately, the beginning of all our distractions in our Krishna consciousness is that we can't actually become attentive to chanting Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this. Inattention is also an offense. And he categorizes inattentiveness into 3 different ways. Odashinya, apathy, right? Apathy or the word. Yeah, there's no heart into the chanting. He explains that because the neophyte's condition, generally there's so much affection to material attachments, it's very difficult to chant with heart. It's like you're very indifferent. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That's indifferent chanting, mechanical chanting. That is regarded as being inattentive to your japa. And he says number 2, laziness, jadya. Falling asleep, doing other things while you're chanting, walking around and being, just not really being attentive to what you're doing. And then the third kind of inattention, he says, vikshepa, which is distraction, which he says basically that while you're chanting, your focus isn't so much on the holy name of the Lord, but rather it's more, the opposite sex or wealth or fame or reputation or success. And you become attached to these things more than you become attached to the holy name. And by the way, Srila Prabhupada says in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, all of the 6 opulences, wealth is the most difficult to overcome. If you have a lot of money, very, very dangerous. People are always wanting money, isn't it? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Oh, Krishna, I need a more bigger bank account balance, Time, money, money, time, money. That becomes the mantra for some people. And I try and not make that my mantra for the Brahma. Of course, I didn't join the brahmacharya to think about money. But sometimes it can be like that, because nowadays the brahmacharya is so compromised. We've got to pay bills, we've got to pay taxes, we've got to pay rent, which is completely unheard of in Kali Yuga. Brahmacharya is paying rent, taxes. But anyway, that's how we have to subsist. It's only compromises that we have to go through to live in this so-called civilization that we live in. But we become distracted to all these different things. And wealth is a really tough one because it's a representation of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. And Lakshmi is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, and everyone's program and the condition in the material world is try to enjoy Radha separate from Krishna. It's like Ravana trying to enjoy Sita separate from Ram. It's a massive distraction. especially wealth. So whatever we've accumulated, we have to make sure that we're not over collecting. We should, as the standard is according to the Prabhupada and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, isn't it? Who's it? Sanatana Goswami? 1/3 for Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami, 1/3 is for the temple. I mean, I don't have to think about this because I don't have a bank account. I don't have a bank balance. Anyway, not a personal one. So for you who are grihastas, you should know this. 1/3 is for what? For the temple, and the other third is for maintenance or something, and the other third is for what? Huh? Emergency. So in this way, this is a good way to divide what in terms of the wealth or the Lakshmi that we may have acquired. So in any case, these three things, apathy, indifference, laziness, and distraction, all constitute inattentive chanting. And the amazing thing is that out of these three, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the third, distraction, is the most difficult because it feeds the jadya, the laziness, and it also feeds the apathy and indifference. And he says that if you want to overcome these things, he mentions twice chanting in the association of more advanced devotees and trying to observe how they are dedicated to chanting Hare Krishna with attention. And he also says association with more advanced devotees who are not wasting their time in useless talk and useless activity. And that's how we can get rid of this inattention. And then furthermore, he talks about one should follow rigidly the rules and regulations of Vaishnava behavior and enthusiastically take part in festivals like Janmashtami, Radhastami, Guru Purnima, and take vows and places, you know, when it comes to like Ekadashi. And above all, he says, be enthusiastic when it comes to chanting Hare Krishna. Utsaha nishchaya dharya tat tat kama vavada. How to just become enthusiastic. Now it's time to chant Hare Krishna. Because he actually says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that actually this is a sign of madness, pramad. When you're trying to address the holy name, address the Lord by chanting his holy name, simultaneously, you're not paying any attention. You are distracted by other things. It's like you're calling someone's name, but you're actually thinking about something else. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this pramad, a sign of madness. And then the fifth canto, Nunam Pramate Pratena Vitara, Pritya Andhya. And the fifth canto, it says that for those who think that sense gratification is the goal of life, one becomes Indriya Priti, one becomes affectionate for these senses, becomes mad after sense gratification. So it's like that. While we're in the stage of convalescence, there's this tug of war, trying to hear the holy name and trying to not become affectionate to the objects of the senses. So there's two kinds of madness. Madness is also there in the spiritual world. You can be mad after Krishna, as exhibited by the residents of Vrindavan, or you could be mad after material sense gratification. So therefore, one has to diligently apply the process of Krishna consciousness. And it's a very powerful combination when you're just trying to hear the holy name, Sri Harinam, and trying to engage in Sankirtan. If you're fortunate enough to have this kind of program, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and giving Krishna to others, Krishna Varam Pisha Krishnam Sangu Pangashta Parshtam Yagyai Sagitai Praya Yajantihi Sumedasaha. An intelligent person engages in the worship of that incarnation of the Supreme Personality of God, who's always chanting and dancing the glories of Krishna. Although he is not blackish, he's accompanied by his servants, weapons, and confidence. So these two things, the individual cultivation of the holy name and Sri Sankirtana. Sankirtan means congregational chanting of the holy name, but giving that to others also in one way, shape, form, or other. You're doing book distribution, that's the Brihat Mridanga, the big Sankirtan. Srila Prabhupada explains there's the little Mridanga, your tick, tick, boom, boom Mridanga playing will only take as far as people will hear a few meters. But if you engage in trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, specifically book distribution, nothing can be more direct as that when you go up to someone and just give them a book about Krishna. If you have that combination of just chanting and Sankirtan and chanting, it's a very powerful combination day after day, week after week, month after month, and life, year after year. It's such a powerful means to destroy, purify the mind, right? Nam namakari bahudani jashava shaktishta trapita nyamita smaranena kala ikadishi tavakipa bhagavan mamati durdaivam idrishan haji nanurag. Oh my Lord, you have so many hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda, and you've invested all your potencies in these names. There's not even any hard and fast rules for chanting these names. But I'm so unfortunate, Krishna, that I have no attraction for them. Durdaivam idrishami hajani nanuraga. This is the sole and major problem that any devotee is trying to overcome. I don't have attraction for chanting Hare Krishna. Therefore, I have so many distractions, distracted with this, distracted with that. That's the number one problem. My spiritual master told me this over almost 2 decades ago. He was giving one class in Brisbane in Australia, and I was complaining this problem and that problem, and actually the real problem. Why are you so distracted and disturbed? Because I have no attraction for chanting Hare Krishna. That is the number one problem. The be all and end all, solve to all your cures. So therefore, we take this remedy of chanting the holy names very seriously, and we take the association of those who are more proficient and advanced seriously. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's remedy for inattentive chanting. It's difficult, I know, especially for the younger generation, especially if they didn't have a proper authority in their life. It's very difficult to have maybe difficult having a meaningful relationship with people who are older than you, because you're just so used to being independent. You know, you leave home at such a young age, especially people that come from India. But we're very dependent. We also have to remember Arjuna's state of affair in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, how he was put into lamentation, Vishad Yoga. He wanted to be independent. He wanted to be his own supreme controller. He wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. He wanted to be the master and put himself in the center. The more that we become advanced in chanting Hare Krishna, these things just become dissipated. As soon as the Krishna sun rises within one's heart, everything that we think was so valuable, materially speaking, is minimized. The false ego is just automatically reduced. Just like you might have I gave this example just recently in an outreach talk. You know, there's 2 fireflies, you know, these little flies that glow in the dark. One of the firefly was glowing a little more brighter than the other firefly. And you might meet people like that in materialistic society. I'm better than you. I'm better looking than you. I'm taller than you. I've got more money than you. I've got a better wife than you. I've got a bigger house. I've got a bigger car. I've got more cars than you. I've got a better job than you. And there's so many reasons to be puffed up. That's illusory nature as a way of, you know, increasing the pride. I've got so much material importance, material credentials. It brings about artificial pride in the materialist. And then you may feel a little bit ridiculous in front of these other people, you know. But when the sun rises in the morning, what is the significance of the glow of the little firefly? even though it's glowing than more than the other fireflies? What's the significance of the little glowworm in the cave when the sun rises in the morning? The glowworm has no significance. Similarly, when we see the Krishna sun rising in our life, when we're actually attentive to chanting the holy name of the Lord, humility, the false ego, just naturally dissipates. The tendency to want to be the controller, the tendency to be independent, the tendency to be enjoying separate from, the tendency to be the master and putting ourselves in the center. It just dissipates naturally. We just want to cooperate all of a sudden with Krishna's desire. Or maybe I'm not so independent. I'm so dependent on other devotees. If you want to experience love, you've got to consider other people. Serving your family is serving you. It's serving you better than serving your own self. Serving society should be giving you more benefit than serving your own selfish desires. Ultimately, serving the nation should be giving you more benefit than serving your own selfish desires. Ultimately, we extend that to serving God. Serving Krishna should give you so much benefit than serving your own selfish desires. And this is the general tendency in this material world, is that generally people become very insular and insulated. It's just all that me. And the extended false ego. So these things just become naturally dissipated as the Krishna sun rises within one's consciousness. And you see yourself, just like when you see the sun rise in the morning, you see yourself in the mirror, right? Oh my God. You see your face in the mirror. So similarly, when the Krishna sun rises within the heart, you see who you truly are, which is Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa. Simply the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna's servants. And then once we become situated in that state of consciousness, then that's the no stress consciousness. The sweet ass mate consciousness, people talk, when you're meeting people all the time, it's like, if you're trying to give them some books, say, sweet ass, I'm sweet ass, I'm all good. No, they're not all good, they're all bad. Doesn't matter how you mask it in material life, it's all bad. Without Krishna, it's all horrible. There's no good qualities. So the real sweet ass, the real all good is when you actually take Krishna consciousness seriously, you take the chanting the holy name seriously. And naturally, all the things that disturb you, all the distractions just become dissipated in due course of time. So we take examples like Bharat Maharaj very seriously. This is very much a very human example that we all struggle with. We're all struggling by the distractions of the material energy. Remember, I'll leave this last point just to make this vivid. It's not death that the devotees are so much concerned about. It's not death, it's the distractions that we have to overcome between now and the point of facing our mortality. Because that's going to take us to our next situation. That's going to take us to our next destination. Yeah, that's what really counts. What we're doing now with our consciousness, what we're doing now with our mind and senses, how we're attached to Krishna and his devotional service. So I'll stop there. Perhaps anyone wants to share some realizations or comments, or perhaps question. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.